Hello and welcome to this presentation. My name is Shamir Gundra. I'm Head of Building Performance Services at BRE. I'd like to thank the organisers, particularly Guy Eames, for arranging this opportunity for me to give you this short address about some of the key aspects of BREEAM, what we've been doing for the past year or so, and particularly about the exciting things coming ahead later this year and into the coming years ahead of us. So for many of you will be familiar with BREEAM. We've been in the sustainability assessment space for over 30 years now, and our global impact, I think, as you can see there, has been plain to see. We've got almost 600,000 assets certified, with over 2.3 million buildings registered in over 89 countries. I think particularly when we look at our experiences in working with assessors and leading organisations in Russia, particularly, we've got over 200 assets registered and over 100 assets certified. So it's been a really good, strong market and uptake for BREEAM, and one that we hope will continue to grow. We've also been working on SQL, our infrastructure assessment methodology, for some time, and we've got over 300 projects now certified under SQL. The graph on the right-hand side really starts to build a picture, I think, of the projects that were certified in 2019 against our core schemes, and how they've actually increased across the piece and quite significantly in a number of areas in 2020. And I think it's important to recognise that so much of the challenge that we faced globally as a community of people, as humanity, over the last year, particularly with COVID-19, has really focused people around the greater challenges that lie ahead in terms of climate change, resilience, social impact, social value, and so forth. And therefore, something like BREEAM, that is holistic in nature in terms of its assessment methodology and scope and reach, really does resonate with all of those types of issues. We are not a single metric scheme. We pride ourselves on being holistic in nature. And you can see just from the approaches and the growth of our schemes in this period of time, it is significant, particularly on the in-use staging of our assessment portfolio. And so much of the built environment is already here today, and that will be here for some time to come. So this is a really good indicator of how we expect the market to continue to grow and really accelerate towards more sustainable outcomes. And we're really proud and privileged that BREEAM is becoming an increasingly relevant part of that landscape. So what have we been doing? Well, over the last year, the team have been really busy working hard to really position ourselves as a scheme and how we can support the recovery, how we can help the industry, particularly many of you who are assessors, our clients and users and advocates of BREEAM. How do we start sharing more of that insight that we've gleaned from over 30 years of running the scheme? So this diagram really just kind of summarises the key aspects that we're looking to build upon to strengthen what we've been doing for some time, but really to position ourselves to respond and enable the transformation in the built environment that so many of us aspire and want to achieve. So particularly if we look at some of these issues in turn, looking at social impact, an aspect that's been relevant and part of BREEAM for many years, but how do we start to engage and understand the influence that the built environment will have and the building will have, the spaces between buildings in promoting social benefit, social value, and those social consequences as well. Resilience, I think now, as we start to recognise how we are going to need to mitigate against climate change, natural resource depletion, and some of these other physical risks from natural hazards and so forth, is becoming increasingly relevant, and something that unfortunately we are seeing happen more and more with the extreme weather events, weather patterns that are not necessarily seasonal, and the extremities to which these issues are occurring, really dovetailing in with the natural environment focus that we've had within BREEAM for many years. What we're also trying to build in is a better way to demonstrate how quality aspects are built into the schemes. How do you start to interconnect new construction, design stage assessment, post-construction assessment into the in-use phase, into refurbishment and operations of those assets? How do you start to build towards a whole life performance approach? Health and well-being has been part of our scheme in some fundamental areas like indoor air quality and thermal comfort for as long as the scheme has been in existence. So that's a really, really strong area that we continue to focus and grow on. Principles around circular economy, that's becoming increasingly relevant in many parts of the world, and particularly across Europe, that how do we start to demonstrate that components can be reused, repurposed, and part of our thinking can actually help better design and reducing those environmental impacts. And obviously, as we've just mentioned before, this chase towards a net zero carbon built environment, we're looking at the emissions and the sources of energy, different types of solutions and systems, how BREEAM has always recognized and worked alongside those types of mechanisms that are cutting edge, leading edge, and particularly trying to promote best practice. So as you all know, every few years the schemes get updated, raising the bar further to provide higher levels of assurance and confidence that the outcomes of a BREEAM certification process lead us towards these aspirations. I think particularly we've seen obviously the European Green Deal and lots of other policy drivers kind of coming to fruition, and other aspects relating to disclosure and the EU taxonomy and other policy instruments really starting to gather momentum across the industry. And I think this is something we're just going to see more and more of, and the requirements therefore of rating schemes like BREEAM to really step up to the plate and provide those solutions in a way that is meaningful and helpful for industry. Just to touch upon briefly some of the key things that we've been working on recently and will be developing further this year. The BREEAM in use, as you saw from the slide previously, it's been one of our fastest growing schemes. Version 6 was released last year. We had the USA version shortly following that, and we've been able to really focus and get it recognized by mortgage providers in the United States. And that's something we will hope to continue to expand in other countries around the world. We're working on the indicators, and what are those key aspects that really help and support better decision making, but equally need to be built upon better data assets and the verification of that information. And the other thing that many of you will probably be aware of is how we build quality through consensus. We've got a huge network of experienced professionals and assessors and clients and stakeholders, advocates of the scheme, and we want to be able to engage in a more structured fashion, and particularly providing that technical content into what we've been doing. So that's a bit of a quick run through. Obviously, I'd love to thank the organisers, congratulate GSU on their significant contributions into this environment for 100 years, and all of you for taking part, attending, and spending the time to pick up more about BREEAM. And do reach out, contact us, train up around obviously the programme, and visit our microsite to understand a little bit more about what we're doing and where we're going from here. Thank you very much indeed.